What's up, Amazon sellers? Are you worried about not having enough cash in your Amazon business when you need it? Well, in this video today, I'm going to share with you how I use my Amazon cash flow spreadsheet to help myself become financially stable and know exactly how much money I can spend in my business on stock every single week. Stay tuned. Right, if you're new to this channel, my name is Thomas Parkinson and I've been selling on Amazon now for the last 5 years. I'm a 7-figure Amazon seller in the UK and in the USA. Now in this video today, I'm going to share with you, number one, an introduction to the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. Number two, I'm going to talk about the top things to track on your Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. Number three, I'm going to talk about how to actually use the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet you can download and also do a live screen share. Number four, I'm going to be talking about the top tips for you for using the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. And then number five, I'm going to go through some nuanced questions around actually how to use the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. And this is going to be around like Amazon loans, disbursements, multiple disbursements, and other questions you may have. Let's get started. Let's give you number one, an introduction to cash flow. Now basically, cash flow refers to the movement of money entering and going out of your business, typically from operations, investing and financing. Now in any Amazon business, cash flows are going to come in, i.e. they're going to be your sales, disbursement from Amazon, and while your outflows are generally going to be expenses, staff, tools, but also stock that we actually purchase. Now if you don't balance these right and get the inflow, the cash coming in, the same as to your outflow, you might go into negative, i.e. where you've spent more than you've got coming in, and this is going to be a problem because your business doesn't have enough money to pay the bills, which can cause you to go bankrupt because obviously you can't pay your bills. But if you manage this correctly, what you are going to have is you're going to be able to not only understand how much money is coming in and obviously cover the costs, but you're going to be able to know exactly how much you can spend to ensure that you're going to invest all the money you can into stock. Now do this right, it's going to really scale your business. Do it wrong, just leaving money on the table, is going to slow down the growth within your Amazon business. Okay, question for you guys. How do you manage the cash flow in your business? Let me know in the comments down below. Obviously, I've got a spreadsheet that you can use, but I'm also interested to know how do you do it. Let me know in the comments down below. Now, this leads me nicely onto my second chapter, top things to track on your Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. Number one, your Amazon disbursements, your inflow. Now, basically, your inflow, money coming into your business, is going to be your Amazon disbursements. And this is how Amazon gets your sales into your account or bank account for you to spend. Now, normally, Amazon will, once you've had a sale, will hold on to that money for 14 days in case of any refunds, they say, which is like really annoying. But after those 14 days, you can then disperse that money into your bank account. Now, a consideration behind this is going to obviously come into you, which is going to help you out. So generally, you're not going to get that money for about 14 days after you've sold it. But also as well, keep in mind that sometimes through banking, it can take another couple of days, up to 3 to 5 days, for that money to go from Amazon's bank account into your bank account before it comes available. Be mindful of that. Now, the second one we're going to consider is credit cards, charge cards, basically available spend that we have. Now, if you're using things like credit cards to purchase your stock, then also this is going to be a big consideration if you want to manage your cash flow, as you can use credit cards to give you additional available cash, which you can buy stock with, and also to help manage your cash flow within your business. Now, the one thing I would say about credit cards, you should always make sure you're able to pay your credit card bills on time. And by knowing this, you can prepare your funds or have the money ready to pay your credit card bills without running out of cash, and obviously ensure that you're not going to be flooded with debts. This is really important to maintaining a good credit rating within your business. Last thing you want to do is not be able to pay your debts. That's going to be a big problem. Now, the third thing I really talk about is we've got the money coming in and we've got the available credit we've got, or should I say charge cards, credit cards, loans perhaps. And the final one I'm going to talk about for you is really looking at your expenses. Now, quite simply, your expenses are going to be the money coming out you've got to pay out of your business, maybe every single day, every week, every month. Knowing when these expenses have got to come out is going to be key in the calculations to ensure that you can manage your cash flow correctly. Now, for us in our business, expenses can be things such as tools that we use like Keeper, for example, but in addition to that, paying staff, so wages, maybe even the Amazon seller fee as well. But then even on top of that, what we are looking at is things like maybe loan repayments, credit card repayments. We've got to factor them in. And then once we know all of these details, so the income, the available credit we've got, and the expenses, then we can actually start looking at how much money we can invest into stock for that time period, i.e. a week, for example. Now, this leads me nicely onto my third chapter, how to use the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet. Now, what I will say is our Amazon cash flow spreadsheet we've utilized within our business over the last 3 years and developed it on my road to doing $1 million in the UK first, and now we do over 3 million a year on it, but also we do over $1 million now in the USA, and we use this spreadsheet in both businesses. Why? Because it works. And the one thing I really love about it is once you understand the money coming in, your available credits, and the money going out, it gives you one number which tells you this is how much you can spend this week safely investing in stock to cover your bills next week and this week as well. And I love it. We've used it. We've done it really well, and it's helped really grow our business without using any additional capital, just by maximizing the use of the capital we already have. What I want to do is to give you a walkthrough on how I use the cash flow management spreadsheet, and I'll jump on the computer now and show you that. Okay, so now we're live onto the cash flow spreadsheet, and what I'm going to do is go through this step by step. I'll give you a high level overview and then we'll go back through it in detail. Now, obviously, again, what I will say is you can get a copy of this down in the description below, but we do charge for it because it's spent a long time developing it to make it work. So let's kind of go through now. So first things first, obviously you're going to get a copy of this, and this is exactly what you're going to get, literally as is right now. So let's kind of look through. So there's two sheets down the bottom, cash flow sheet and then cash flow sheet USA. They're exactly the same, just one has dollars, one has pounds. So that's going to help you out. We've got step 0. I'll talk about that in a second. This is going to be just setting up the sheet. You only do it once. Step 1 is going to be where all your money is at. So what we're doing is recording all the inflows and where the cash available is right now. That's going to be important. Step 2, we're going to talk about future costs. So what the expenses coming up within the business this week and next week, and also over the course of the month. And you'll see how that changes your bank balance over time. And I will talk you through that. Step 3 is going to be calculating what's known as the safe maximum spend. And this is going to be about, once we know how much money we've got coming in, we know how much money needs to go out, we're then going to do calculations to make sure that not only we can, meet our expenses this week, but also meet our expenses next week. Now, the fourth one is really just do what the sheet says, i.e. pay off the bills this week and then communicate this amount of money to your team or to yourself about how much money you need to spend. So this is going to help you out as well. So let's jump into it a little bit more detail right now, and I'll kind of talk through. So let's go back up to step 0. Now, step 0 is going to be really setting up. You only have to do it once. And what we're trying to do, it's already preset, so you don't have to change it, but if you want to, you can. When you disperse money from Amazon, what generally happens? When you make sales initially, Amazon puts that money into their disbursement account. They'll hold that money for 14 days, and when you click the disperse number, Amazon is going to give you a percentage and amount of that money. And that's based on how the sales have worked. I'm not going to go into the detail, you can research that, but let's say, for example, right now I had $10,000 and I click disperse. Well, I might get, let's call it 5,000. So what does that mean? 5,000 is going to be left in the Amazon disbursement account. Now, what we're going to guess is that we'll get 5,000 this week and we're going to maybe get 5,000 next week. But what we have noticed is that we don't actually get 5,000 next week. We're going to get a bit less than that. And what we've generally noticed is that of that 5,000 next week that we might get, we generally see it's about 25% reduction. Instead of being 5,000, it might actually be like 4,000, for example. That's 20%, but you kind of get the idea. So what we do is we use this step 0, 20, this reduction on next week's amount to say, once we record how much money we have in the disbursement account today, 10,000, once we click disperse, let's say, for example, Amazon give us 5,000, of the remaining money left, how much should we reduce that down for next week's income forecasting? And that's when we do cash flow. Now, if it sounds confusing, don't worry, leave it at 25. But if you understand what I'm talking about, you can tweak that, maybe get it a bit more aligned with how your business is working. So I will put that in there, but if you're not sure, just leave it as is. So we talk here, you've got obviously to watch the video explainer, visit us, and obviously set up. So let's jump through to step 1, where all your money is at. Now, the most important thing is to, number 1, look at inflows, and then also to look at all available credit and cash. So when we look at this, what are we looking at? First things first, we're going to literally, I do this every single Monday, and the way the sheet works is we use it on a weekly basis. So every Monday, I will literally go through and do this exact process as I'm explaining right now. I'm going to log into every single one of my bank accounts, and I'm going to, Santander, TransferWise, PayPal, and I'm going to record how much money is in cash in that bank account. And if it's got an overdraft, I'll add that overdraft into the statement as well. So for example, here, if I've got an overdraft, I might, say for example, it's got 6,661, I might say, look, 6,061, I've got £1,000 overdraft and 5,661 in the bank. Cool, so total 6,061. So I'm just going to record all the money and available cash in the bank accounts. Number 2, I'm going to come to the credit cards and I'll list all my credit cards down I have. I'll list the limit on the credit cards, and then I'll put the current balance. So what is the balance on that credit card? So right now we've got a Santander, 5,000 limit, £4,511 on that credit card right now. the sheet's going to work out the difference because we can spend the difference if we wanted to. Charge cards, we're going to list them as well, but charge cards are different to credit cards. They don't have a limit, so we don't record a limit, we just record the balance, and that's a really important point. And then the final one is supplier credits. If you're doing wholesale, for example, maybe they're giving you a credit limit that you can spend to, so we're going to record who the supplier is, what the limit is, and what the balance is on that limit right now. Then we move over to the Amazon account. So when we move into each Amazon marketplace, obviously if you're in the UK, you might do EFN, European. What we're going to do is we're going to record how much money does Amazon say we have right now in our disbursement account. So for me, it'll be 10,000. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click disperse the money. And probably about 10 seconds later, once it finishes, it's going to show me how much money I'm actually going to get, because it will do the calculations. While I've got 10,000 in my disbursement account, after I click disperse, Amazon's going to show me that I'm going to get this week in my disbursement 6,792. So they're going to say, okay, so I record that amount. Now, obviously what I can calculate is that I'm probably going to get the difference next week minus the percentage in step 0, if that makes sense to you. So once we've got all the balances of our bank accounts, once we've got all the credit cards and the balances, the charge cards, suppliers, and the Amazon disbursements, so available cash and the inflows, what we're then going to do is move over to our future costs, and we're going to look at those expenses. Here, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to jump over to this section right here, which is called Reminder of the Big Monthly Costs. Now, when we do this, if you're just setting it up, my advice would get your bank statement, download that bank statement, and we're looking for all your expenses which are not stock related. So maybe it's like Amazon Seller Central account, maybe it's Keeper, maybe it's your tools, maybe it's your VA wages, maybe you've got, should we say charge cards, or should we say warehouse fees coming out. What you're looking at is all these costs that you have to pay every single month. Just list them out here, put them all in. I wouldn't worry too much about the little ones. We'll talk about how to deal with them in a moment, but generally the bigger cost is what we're trying to do. So I'd list out what are the costs, general amount that I have to pay, and if you've got the correct amount for this month, update that. And then what day of the month do I generally pay it? That's an important point. So once I've filled that out, that's going to be helpful for me. I'm then going to come over to here. Now, the one thing you might notice, the color yellow basically means this is where you fill out stuff. So if you ever see yellow, that's what you edit. Now in this section here, I'm going to look at the expenses for this week and the expenses for next week's. We do this cash flow sheet every week, but also we're forecasting what we're going to spend this week and also make sure we can cover our bills for next week as well. So what I'm going to put in here, first things first, you've got a safety buffer. I would just change this yourself, and we talk about £1,000. That's a nice safety buffer. This is really like, we always make sure we've got £1,000 spare in the bank account. Why? Because of any little expenses that come out. Then what we also do is we have little costs. And I talked about, like Keeper, like the, the tools that you use, Amazon selling account. These are all little costs. We can itemize them if you want to, but it just makes it a bit more complex. So what I do is I say, right, roughly how much are the little costs? And I just kind of add them all up, add on an extra amount and put that in here. So for example, I think our little cost might be actually about 150 a week on average. So I add an extra 100 in case one week has more than the others, call it 250, done. So I'll put in that little cost there. And then what I'm going to do is put my, I've got my warehouse. So my warehouse right now, we don't have the invoice from the supplier, but if my warehouse was like, I don't know, £250, for example, I'd put that. I'd just update that over here. They call it 250. Fantastic. Now maybe I've got my Amex bills coming out this week. Also I need to check my Amex bill. How much am I going to have to pay? So I'll put that amount in there. Then again, we're going to do exactly the same for next week. Little cost, VAT, how much is that? I'll put it in. Amex again, maybe we've got another Amex credit card. Maybe we've just got a random amount. I call test, for example, but you've got another cost coming out. Could be anything, wages, for example, put that in there as well. Now what it's going to do is the sheet is going to work out how much cash you've got available. It's going to work out how much credit you've got available, and then also how much cash you've got coming in. And it's going to add up the total amount of cash you've got. So it's just going to help you see there. Don't worry too much about that, but if you want to know, you've got that information. Then the final thing it's going to do on this section is it's going to map out what your bank balance is going to look like over the course of the next 2 weeks. So we've got the cash flow planner down the bottom here. It's going to say week commencing. It's going to say the day of the month. So 30th, 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. What day of the week is it? So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. It's going to show you what estimated income it's got coming in. So we can see that. Basically, we know that Amazon disbursements, if you're going to do this every Monday, the disbursements will generally fall in on Wednesday. It takes about 2 to 3 days. Then the expenditures, and again, it's going to be looking at this reminder of big costs and what day of the month, then it will map it out into expenditures. And then what it's going to do is it knows the balance because you've done the bank balances today, and it's just going to adjust that total spend balance over the course of the week, so you can just see how the balance of all the money is going to change. And again, it'll do it for this week and for next week. Now, let's say, for example, I've got an Amazon loan repayment, and that's happening on the 30th. What happens if my Amazon loan repayment is not 200? Maybe it's like, I don't know, 200,000. Well, if I put that in, It's now going to go red, and you're going to see, whoa, there's a big problem here. I'm now going to go into red with my cash flow. That's something we want to avoid, and that's just going to help you understand there could be a problem on this day. I need to be a bit more careful with my cash. Maybe I need to look into it in more detail. Let's put that back. Now, once I put all this data in, so number one, we've done our cash, what's coming in and what's the balance is right now. Number two, we've done the future costs. We're now going to move through to 3, which is the calculations. Now, what I'm looking at here is it's going to say how much money we've got coming in, credit availability. It's going to do forecasting, so estimated funds available, what my income is, and what my expenditure is for the week. And then it's going to give you a calculation. So it says this week you could spend a maximum of $12,509. That's the maximum amount of money I can spend this week. Fantastic. It's also going to ask me to do a manual entry. It's called calculated max safe spend. So this is the one number that I'm going to change, and I'll talk about that in a second. So we'll change that number in a minute. And then it's going to do spend before Amazon disbursement arrives. So again, it's going to work out if you disperse on Monday, it will come in on Wednesday, and that's going to show you how much you can spend before Tuesday, Wednesday, so like to make sure you can still cover your bills. And then finally, it's going to go into next week as well, looking at the funds available, what the estimated income will be from the disbursements, what the expenditures are going to be, and the net difference. You might notice these little arrows here, and you've got some red boxes. I'll explain that now. Our goal when we look at this section is here to change this one number here. We want to make this number as large as possible. That's what it says here. Don't let this go into red. If red, you do not have enough money to pay your bills next week, make this as small as possible without going into red, or you'll run out of money. So we want to make this number as small as possible without it going red. So right now we can see that's red. So let's kind of change this. I'm going to put in like 9,000, for example. Voila, looks great. But this number is pretty big, 1,680. That's not that small. Can I make this number smaller? Let's make this a little bit higher. Let's call it 10,000. And go, cool, everything's green still. I still got 680, so maybe I can say, I'm going to make this, let's just make it nice and simple, 10,500. Fantastic. I've got £180 spare. Absolutely not a problem. I could even go up to 10,680, but I'm not. I'm going to leave it there at 10,000. Why? Because this is going to be how much I can spend this week, my cash flow, because it's going to help me manage all the different money coming in and out. Now, the final bit, step 4, is we take action. It's going to be really simple. Here are the invoices you've got to pay this week, so get them paid. And then number 2, communicate this to your team, or you, for example. You can say here, the maximum safe spend for this week is 10,500. We can see that. And then finally, do not spend any more than 5,717 before Thursday. Why? Because that's when the disbursement comes in, unless it's on charge cards and credit cards. And that's just going to help you manage to make sure you don't overspend early in the week, or your purchasing team don't. And obviously they make sure they have the right amount to spend for the whole week, and then obviously what they can't spend before. So that's going to help you manage that money coming in and make sure you can pay everything you do. And that is the cash flow spreadsheet. Now, this is exactly the same for the UK as well as the USA, just the dollars and the pounds. That's the only difference you're going to see. So again, you can get a copy of this down below. Okay, so I just want to take a quick moment out to talk about the cash flow spreadsheet. Now, we've developed this cash flow spreadsheet over the last probably 3 years. We've done, multiple 7 figures in our businesses, and it's really supported us to grow. Now, the one thing which I would say is I am not, and we are not qualified accountants, and we are not qualified to give financial advice on an individual basis. You do need to speak to your financial advisor, and this is not professional qualified advice. This sheet is something that we've used that's really supported our business, and I'm hoping in turn is going to support yours. But what I would say is we cannot be held responsible for any actions or problems with it. You do need to check the data around it, and you do need to make sure that you're actually managing your cash flow correctly. And I would recommend that you speak to a qualified financial advisor or an accountant to support you in managing your cash flow correctly. This is a guide that we've used that's helped us, and hopefully it can help you as well. But again, it's not qualified advice. Do seek independent professional advice if you're having problems with your cash flow, and obviously maybe you want to get that done from someone who can know your unique circumstances. Now, this leads me nicely onto my 4th chapter, some tips for you on using the cash flow spreadsheet. Now, when using the cash flow spreadsheet to make business decisions, it is important to make sure you're entering all the data right, and obviously you're going to be able to make informed decisions on that. Now, here are some top tips that are going to really support you in making good informed decisions. So number 1, what do I recommend? Regularly review your records. And what do I mean? Expenses. Really go through your expenses at least once a month, ensure that all transactions that are going through your bank statement are actually correct onto what cash flow spreadsheet is. Last thing you want is bills coming out that you haven't forecasted, and obviously that's going to cause a problem. Number 2 is use the data for informed decisions. Going through this spreadsheet is going to help you understand what money's coming in, also what your available cash is, and obviously expenses going out. Make sure that you're communicating that amount, which is the available cash, to your team or to the people you need to know, and what needs to be paid at the right times to make informed decisions in your business. There's no point filling out a cash flow spreadsheet if you are not able to use that information to help grow your business. Now, the 3rd thing I'm going to recommend is spend all the money. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, once you go through the cash flow spreadsheet, and we do do it every single week on a Monday. That's the way it's set up to work. You now have enough information or knowledge to know how much you can spend every single week. It should help you manage your business to make sure that you have a safe spend whilst maximizing the amount of cash you invest into stock. Now, once you understand that number and obviously we put it in, you can spend up to that amount. So do use it, make sure you invest in it and make sure you manage it. Fourth thing I'm really going to recommend for you is monitor your cash flow balances. Now, when you first start implementing this cash flow spreadsheet, it could be that you're doing something wrong, or maybe you're not using it in the right way. What do I recommend? I recommend making sure that you're actually managing your bank statements every single day, just watching it, making sure that actually what the sheet is telling you is correct to what's really happening. Mistakes can happen, and generally because of unforeseen consequences or unforeseen actions. So check it every single day, make sure it works, and that's going to be really important for you to make sure that the cash flow sheet is working in your business. Okay, so this leads me nicely onto my fifth chapter, common questions around cash flow. Now, the first common question is, how do you account for Amazon loans? One thing which I'll say about Amazon loans, and I'll jump into the sheet in a minute, Amazon loans are just another expense. You don't actually worry about the loan amount itself or the balance of the loan. All you're worrying about is the amount of cash that you have to pay every single month. The one thing you need to understand about Amazon loans is that Amazon will take the money out of your disbursement, not out, you don't get the disbursement and then pay the Amazon loan back. So how does this affect you on the cash flow spreadsheet? Well, let me jump onto the sheet now and I'll kind of show you how we would account for this in our Amazon loan payments. So when I'm into the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet, the one thing I would do is I would come down to my actual cost here and I call it Amazon loan repayment. Now I would put in the amount that I'm actually having to repay, call it 200. Now I would put the date, and generally that's going to be the end of the month, but obviously look at your loan agreement. So when that's coming out of your disbursement. Now what you will notice is that while technically in the way it works is that the Amazon loan repayment won't come out of your expenditures here, it will actually come out of your income, which is up here. So your Amazon total balances will be reduced by that amount. But what we do look at is we say, look, the Amazon loan repayment, we just put it as an expense on the sheet. And what we understand is that next month, we might say we're getting a £10,000 income and a £200 expense, which is the Amazon loan. But what will actually happen is that the income will be reduced by £200, so it's now 9,800, and we won't have the expense. So it's kind of, the best way to think about it is the expense gets merged into the income before you get to see the income. But what we do, and the way we deal with it, is by putting it into the expenses tab and accounting for it that way, but we don't actually have to pay it because it's already been paid by the disbursement. Hope that makes sense. Now, the second point is what to do if you change your disbursement amounts. Now, some people talk about, doing the disbursements daily, and some people do about 2 weekly. Now, if you do it 2 weekly, absolutely no problem. The one thing I'd say is on the sheet, and if we jump on now, is on the sheet here where it's got Amazon disbursement this week, absolutely fine. I would just leave that here, but I would actually then set the total balance down to 0. Why? Because when you do the Amazon disbursement this week, you know how much money is coming out, that's absolutely fine. But the total balance here is going to be, you're going to get nothing. You're going to literally say, I'm not getting any more next week. So if you're doing it every 2 weeks, just leave your total balance at 0, but do your cash out as the amount of money you're getting. That's going to help you out. Some people have asked me, can I do it daily? Certainly can, but the sheet isn't set up for that. And the reason why we don't do it daily is because if we cashed out today disbursement-wise, and Amazon paid us the money today disbursement-wise, absolutely fine, I'd be very happy. But because it doesn't really work that way, because Amazon holds on, or the banking system takes a few days to get the money, it starts causing overlap. And what does this mean? It means that I'm cashing out money today, which won't come into my bank account for the next 3 days. And then tomorrow I'm going to cash out again. I've got more money coming in 3 days. So I kind of got like multiple days of money coming in, multiple days of money going out, and it gets really complex. And the one thing which I want to do within my business is I just want to keep it simple. Like managing your cash flow every single week is simple. Doing it every single day becomes a lot more complex, and being able to manage the intricacies of great cash flow on a daily basis becomes really complex. And quite frankly, I don't think that even I'm set up to calculate that. What I do understand is the more complexity you have, the more errors we're likely to mistake. There's one thing I definitely don't want to be making errors with, and that is my cash flow, and in particular, not being able to pay my bills when I expect it to. So hence why the sheet isn't set up for daily, but you can possibly do it, but I wouldn't be able to support you in that. I would really recommend just do it weekly, every Monday. It's a great habit to build, and it's going to support you in knowing where your business is at. Now, the third point is about the safety buffer. Now, if we jump onto the computer right now, you can see here under future costs, it's got your safety buffer. Now, really, your safety buffer is the amount of money you just want to make sure you've got in the account every single week at all times to ensure that you've got any problems, any unexpected expenses you can do. Now, one thing we did add into also on the sheet, we had little expenses. Little expenses are those little expenses like software tools that all just add up. So we put that in as well, but we also have a safety buffer. Now, for you in my business, we probably do 100,000 spend in a week, on a busy week, we still have a safety buffer at £1,000. For you, what you might want to do is put a bigger safety buffer in to start with, maybe 4,000 or 5,000, and then start bringing it down once you've watched the cash flow and say, like, I feel comfortable, I feel happy. So there is no hard and fast answer for the safety buffer, but if you're worried, put it up higher, then every single week, bring it down as you start watching the amount of available cash every single day versus that cash flow planner. You can start to see that and see how the sheet works versus the reality of the situation. Hope that helps. Now, what I will say is after understanding how to use the Amazon cash flow spreadsheet, you might want to consider watching a video I created called The Complete Guide to Amazon Inventory Management, which is a key part of cash flow, and I'll drop that around here. Now, hopefully you've liked this video. If you have, hit the like button, and hey, get the sheet and download it down below. And finally, if you think someone needs to know about managing cash flow, hit the share button and share them the link. And obviously, if you want to see more videos from myself and what I'm learning, hit the subscribe button as well. But for myself, Thomas Parkinson, Fast Track FBA, thank you very much.